Thank you so much for staying with us on the program this morning. One nation, one people. May Day. The first time it was celebrated was in 1980. And it was in Nigeria. It dates back to 1886, by the way, in Chicago, USA. First time in Nigeria was in 1980 under a People's Redemption Party government in Kano State, Second Republic. Nigeria adopted it in 1981, so May Day has been celebrated every year since. Now, the primary focus for workers remained the struggle for a livable income. Over the years, it's been the same, almost the same thing, welfare of the workers and all of that. Especially now because the purchasing power of the current wage continues to be eroded by hyperinflation. The current national minimum wage is set at 70,000 naira per month under the 2024 Act. But as of early 2025, implementation remained inconsistent across various states. The government recently sanctioned salary increments of 25 to 35% for civil servants under certain consolidated salary agreements and all of that. The removal of fuel subsidies and the subsequent rise in transportation and food costs have significantly burdened the average household. More than 90% of jobs in Nigeria are in the informal sector, where workers often lack access to pension, health care, and standard job security. Workers in sectors like electricity and agriculture have reported increased threats from kidnapping and banditry while on duty. These are the realities this morning. So let's have conversations around this today with the Director General of the Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies. He joins us from our studio, Mr. Issa Aremu. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Very well, Ayo, I think I can call you a comrade now. Okay.
I think I need my
belated happy
yes.
Happy May Day.
I think I need my NLC card for that to qualify as a comrade.
So looking at two of you, I don't think you live on minimum wage.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence.
Exactly.
Thank you for the vote of confidence.
No vote of confidence. I can see it.
It's make believe.
You live on maximum wages.
Okay. Well, but be that as it may, whichever way we put it, Mr. Aremu, there was this series, I think it was in the 80s or in the 90s, called The Rich Also Cry. No matter how much money one gets, there's hardly any way you will not feel the pinch quite a bit. So let's start from there. We've been talking about the same issues concerning labor. Every time we talk about May Day, we're talking about workers' wages most of the time and all of that. How well are we doing in championing that cause?
Well, I think once again, let me say good morning, and through you to all our viewers, and to say belated happy birthday greetings to everybody. It's not just the rich that cry. Well, when the rich cry, that makes noise, but maybe we should talk more of not so rich. I wouldn't want to say poor, who have always been crying and are still crying. But that's what the media is all about, to, for once, draw attention to the plight of the working men and women, which include you. I mean, Ayo and Joke, I'm a good fan of your program. I watch you, like any other programs of channels. And I know what it takes for you to put the effort, for you to come to work every morning. Not only that, to give your best. But we shouldn't take this for granted, because it took the generation of the working men and women globally to make labor very, very important and relevant. And from your remark, I know that you have knowledge of history. May Day raises the issue of history, the relevance, as well as the context. But the history is what you've started. This started as far back as 1886. Today we talk of 8 hours work. It wasn't like that before. The first generation of working people worldwide used to work for 20 hours, 22. In fact, in the case of textile, it was 24 hours. And they carry dead bodies. Most of them women. In United States, dead bodies, they bury them. So it was in 1886 that these workers protested. It was quite a big fight, and largely by women. A good number of them were killed. They had confrontation with the police. That was in the United States, in Chicago. And that was a democratic America. Because when you also talk of democracy could grant the right to vote and co, but democracy for a long time never guaranteed the right of workers. So minimum pay, minimum hours of work. So those Chicago workers came out to demand for 8 hours work. It was a tall order. Later they bargained for 10 hours, but to even get the 10 hours, they killed quite a number of labor leaders. That was the genesis of globally the May Day. So if you check the record, we are possibly celebrating almost about 146 years of May Day globally. But for Nigeria, I think I listened to you, Ayo, very well, depending on what date you want to use. But I prefer to use 1980 because the two progressive governors of the then Kano State and Kaduna State under People's Redemption Party, namely the late Aremu and the late Balarabe Musa, audaciously declared 1980 as a work-free day in the two states. But that was also a response to the demand of organized labor. The pioneer president of Nigeria Labour Congress, it's Alhaji Hassan Sumanu. He's still very well alive. We just marked his 85th birthday, January this year. He demanded for a public holiday for May Day. And the two governors audaciously took the step. But Second Republic was also very rich for issue-based governance, politics, ideologically driven governance. So Alhaji Shehu Shagari, the then president of Nigeria under the National Party of Nigeria, had no choice than to declare the May Day the following year, 1981. So if you take any date you take, depending on your convenience, your ideological preference, if you take 1980, so we can say we are marking 46 years of celebration of May Day. But if you take 1981, 45, so which is quite remarkable. And if I can recollect, I've been in this business for long, I used to be the General Secretary of Textile Workers, also Vice President of Nigeria Labour Congress. So I can tell you the story of May Days, because I've been part of it from 1981.
Wow. And
I want to say there was no year that we never celebrated May Day, even under the military. Both IBB and Abacha military dictatorship dissolved the Nigeria Labour Congress, but we still mark the May Day nonetheless, because the industrial unions affiliated to the NSCs had to mark the day to celebrate the dignity of labor. Even under COVID, I could remember 2020, we did virtual May Day. We had virtual rallies, very, very novel, But what's the whole idea? The whole idea is that labor creates wealth. People don't know labor until possibly they go on strike. But if there is no strike, who are the people keeping the workplace peaceful? It's working men and women who under difficult conditions, they have to wake up.
Maybe the issue that I'm raising, Mr. Aremu, is whether or not we are giving the right, we are getting the kind of traction that we want from celebrating May Day. Okay, you have cited, for instance, two progressive governors, as you call them, in the North in 1980, who fought for and achieved this public holiday to celebrate May Day 46 years ago. Now here we are. We talk about this thing every time. Most of the time the attention is on the federal government. Most of the time. The duty of signing the law, getting a law, a federal law, a national law for minimum wage comes from the federal government. But the execution is not restricted just to the federal government. For instance, we are aware that a couple of states, have decided that they're going to surpass the number, that was given to them. Imo State is doing 104,000 naira monthly. Lagos State is doing minimum 85,000 naira. But we still have states who are still struggling. Or maybe you want to tell us whether or not all states, all 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT, have been able to achieve this 70,000 naira minimum wage.
Yeah, I'm just going to arrive at your effort I listened to the first segment of the discussion, and I could see your effort to remind all those your emergency active politicians that we are running a federation. And the history I've given you shows that there was once a Nigeria in which the states were really active. Even UPN state during the Second Republic actually promised 230 naira or so for minimum wage. Even at the time, the federal government was promising 125 naira. So I'm just telling you, and I agree with you very well. But point blank to your question, there are a couple of states that have implemented the new minimum wages very well. Not only implemented, they even pay more. I can remember Lagos, I can remember Kano, Kwara State, Edo, even top it further also very remarkably. Imo, and possibly Imo has even the highest number in nominal terms, more than the national minimum wage. So, national minimum wage, what makes minimum wage very remarkable is that it's backed up by Act of Parliament. It's a law. In fact, non-payment is actually criminal. There's a clause for sanctions for non-compliance. So if some states have paid, no excuse for other states to say they are not paying. But that's where my colleagues in the organized labor have to really be on duty for them to engage government, because it's a law. Ayo, let me tell you why governors and state officials, including the president, are very important on labor market issues. That they are not just employers of labor; they are government to enforce the law. So if you don't pay minimum wage, who are you to ask Mobile or Chevron not to pay? So they are to enforce the law. So I'm clear. And back to that, now these are facts. Ayo, this President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has commendably done well to address labor issues. I have been involved in this business, and I know he's the only president who, as a candidate, had a whole directorate on labor issues. So we had a town hall meeting in which he met with all the executive members of both the TUC and NSC. And point blank, they told him he must increase the minimum wage. He has done so from 30 to 70. It's the highest in nominal terms that we ever had. Now, for the implementation, he has also implemented it himself. Not only that, he went further, he had the wage award of 35%. On the eve of the May Day, the head of service just announced the new peculiar allowances for category of civil servants. Announced 100% percentage increase in DTA for public servants. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has also cleared all the pension areas, almost about 850 billion naira, very unprecedented, So today, contribution scheme is a bit more robust than the way it is. So the state must follow. And I think this is where I agree with you, Ayo. When I know Onajunu, agonizing and lamenting, we're always in political mode. But at times, we must also be in governance mode. And I've argued, I wrote an article for this media as the Director General of the Institute, Premier Labour Institute, which is meant to promote labour education, to say that we need to bridge the gap and promote education among labour market issues. But my take is that the next elections, 2027 elections, should be determined by labour issues. And what are labour issues? Job creation, job security, adequate payment of salaries and wages, pensions. Of course, labor are not just factors of production, they are also human beings. Security, even gender issues is about labor issues. Women are not supposed to just take care of children at home. We have a law that allows for paternity leave. So if you are still in this business, prepare to take leave and assist madam. Because women have to produce new generation of workers, and we can't leave it only to them.
Oh my God!
Job creation is about employment, the way it is, and we shouldn't take this for granted. There was once a president in this country, and I can talk to you. I'm talking to you as a DG who lives some facts. 1999, we did have these revenue challenges. President Obasanjo sacked workers, retrench workers in good number in public service. Downsizing, right-sizing with Ngozi Iweala. But this president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whatever you want to say, kept to the faith we had with him, and he retained jobs. Not only that, he has created more jobs. All those public institutions that have been created, Southeast Commission, North Central, Southwest, this avenue for creating more jobs. You have Net Fund. You have the other one, Asset Something Creation Committee. Run the numbers. More jobs have been created in public service. If you also see the initiative taking over the issue of refineries, now we have Dangote refineries. I heard Onanuju talking of Dangote refinery. If there is no policy, Dangote refinery couldn't have come on stream. Today, more jobs have been created. And I want to use this platform to also thank Alhaji Aliko Dangote for calling back those engineers that have been sacked. I brought them back on the eve of May Day. I said that was the one May Day gift from the private sector. So all other actors should follow along this line. Banks are declaring billions or if not trillions of profit turnover and co. How many jobs are they creating? Are some of them even giving minimum wage? We have serious crisis of compensation. So we will not only focus on federal, even if we ask state, what are private sectors? Are we saying jobs created in banks are commensurate with the profit they are declaring every other day? So you consolidate the banks. I don't know what the language they put now, reconsolidation. Have they reconsolidated their, not just the capital base, but the job base? What is the quality of job being created here? Are they decent? They are largely contract jobs in which they hire and fire. There's no guarantee for their future. So I think May Day gives opportunity to celebrate labor. But if you ask me, Joke, celebrating labor should be every day. And the greatest crisis we have in our hand today is crisis of compensation. You said so annually we'll be talking about, no, annually. Michael Imodu, you remember, is the first labor leader. He was the first labor leader who led the railway workers against the British colonial management in the railway. Railway in those days was like NMPC. If you worked in railway, you are working out of poverty in those days. But it wasn't easy. It was Michael Imodu who challenged the British to say, no, you are offering low pay. They also had racist discriminatory pay. He said you pay African workers different rates, while you pay European different rates. So he confronted them. He also, after the Second World War, there was also the living crisis, what do you call it, cost of living went up. That's the way we're having now, global economy. But he led the struggle over the cost of living crisis. But the point I'm raising here is that the crisis still persists today. So we're having crisis of compensation at all levels.
Right.
And I think deliberately we must factor labor as the most important factor of development.
Yes.
Humans are being underrated. We lay more emphasis on capital. It's easier to pay for diesels than to pay Ayo and Joked, good pay for them to go to work. By the way, I didn't see you at the May Day rally. At the May Day rally, you were not there yesterday.
We were here trying to report what you did at the May Day rally. Forgive us for not being present physically.
You did very good job, very good coverage.
Thank you.
Did very well.
So
and when you see those beautiful pictures, you know that the best resource we have in Nigeria is human resource.
Yes, certainly.
Colorful, all we need to do is to celebrate them. And Ministry of Labor should be capacitated. It's the oldest ministry. Check your record. But it's poorly funded. Among others, neglect.
Right. If I can come in there, you started by commending, the president for raising the minimum wage, and of course, those other state governments that are paying higher than, than the federal numbers. But things change almost every year or every month. We deal with inflation rates here and there. What are those economic indicators that you believe will you use to benchmark future living wage adjustments, rather than just proposing a flat minimum wage every time that you think that it's time to raise the wage because things have changed. The standard of the social nets are no longer what they used to be. So, people cannot, people's spending power, has been lowered. So we need to raise the money again. But what are those things that you think should be used to make those adjustments year in, year out?
Yeah, I think, the minimum wage, technically speaking, is the way it is. It's actually the minimum. It's for the lowest of the, of the employment structure. In fact, minimum wage is actually meant for the voiceless, who couldn't speak. And that's why it's a national minimum wage. And interestingly, this is the 6th National Minimum Wage Act that we are put in place. The first one started in 1981, again under President Shehu Shagari, and that tells you that democracy, allows for more protection of the workers' rights than military dictatorship. All the minimum wage acts that have been taking place have taken place under a democratic atmosphere that we can negotiate, we can discuss, workers can ask for their rights. That means organized labor has a stake to protect this democracy. Very, very well. We are talking about 26 years or so of this democratic process. So I think we should nurture it very well. But minimum wage, technically, as I've told you, is for the lowest. And it means that every employer must pay that minimum wage, whether private, public, federal, or state, or local government. So it's a benchmark. What we should be asking for, Joker, is living wage. And living wage comes through negotiation to look at what the facts are, what's the performance of the company, what's the revenue flow of federal government, for us to get it clear. But I said so before, and I want to repeat that this is the highest rate we've ever had. I think about around 10%, and I want to thank or appreciate the organized labor, the two of the NTUC and the NSC for making this possible. But in real terms, because of the other microeconomic crisis, inflation, devaluation of the currency, we can say that in real terms, minimum wage of about 20 years ago possibly had more value than the way it is today.
Interesting.
But one thing this administration has also done is to reduce the cycle of negotiation from 5 to 3 years. So we're due for a new round of negotiation next year.
Perhaps
from the way it is. So
I'm hoping that when we get there, there will be some stronger, argument.
We need to now prepare for
I'm
that.
actually trying to put a question around that. I've always argued something, Mr. Aremu. Every time we're talking about wages, and there's NLC or any labor association, this ASU, NASU, the rest of them, we hear that they are already threatening to go on another strike. It's always about increasing minimum wage. Hardly, Mr. Aremu, does anyone, particularly labor unions, talk about productivity. And that is what is, that's what will naturally bring in the resources that they are looking to get paid for. But add that your response to this particular one. Increasingly, I was having a conversation with someone earlier this week, and I was talking about the fact that even in my own profession, radio stations can run autonomously, right? No staff needed. And we know the consequence of that. And that's just for one sector. Banking. You name it. Automotive industry, for instance, we know you can practically create, set up an auto manufacturing plant with just 2 people. Everything else is automated. Is labor ready for artificial intelligence that is already taking over jobs all over the world? People are afraid that AI is going to take their jobs, but we also know that AI does not have a human brain. AI is purely artificial. So if people do not scale up, they may not be able to retain their jobs in the next dispensation. So is this something that is of concern to labor as well?
Yeah, very well. Maybe the soundbite is not so loud, but every self-enlightened labor leader knows that productivity is the key. In any case, you can't ask for any improvements in whether minimum or living wages if nothing has been produced. The motto of Nigeria Labour Congress, of which I used to be 2-time vice president, is labor creates wealth. So labor is also clear that productivity should not be left alone to government or employers alone. In any case, if nothing is produced, nothing can be shared. So it is clear. But I got your point that we need to also link, demand for wage increase to productivity. So if you ask for minimum pay, you must also assure minimum productivity. In any case, those are the issues that normally go into negotiation. Cost of living, ability to pay, productivity, revenue flow. I was telling my comrades in both the NSA and TUC to say that even the discussion on tax revenue should not be left only to government alone. We should be involved over that, because tax is only a function of the base. So if you say personal income tax, it's also based on the fact that workers you are charging are also productive. If they don't have anything being paid for, you can't tax it. So I absolutely agree with you. But that does not deny the fact that we have crisis of compensation. We are living in a market economy. If you go to the market, you need to pay your bills. You want to rent a house, you have to pay your bills. That's the reality working people face every other day. So we shouldn't take wage issues for granted. And that's why I've also argued for minimum wage. UK started minimum wage in 1989. We started 81. So they joined us in this business. But today, they've moved on. They adjust minimum wage every year, 2nd of April. And it's disaggregated. The one for women workers are different. The one for the apprentices are different. So we need to put up our thinking cap to make sure that minimum is adjusted every day. But they do the calculation. What is the productivity rate? What's the performances? I'm not just a comrade talking to you. I'm also a DG now. I need to manage an institute. And I used to tell my staff, when they ask for welfare, for productivity, I always say, wait, but promotion is a function of productivity. What work are you doing? You must justify your pay. Some don't come to work on time. In fact, the correct some of them have with me is that I come to work too early. Can you imagine? We have to resume work 8 o'clock. Close for some may not come to 10, 11. So it's constant discussion. But that now raises the issue of education. And that's what my institute is meant for. We're a Premier Labour Institute with mandate to conduct education for government officials, private employers, and organized labor on labor issues, which include productivity. There's a whole, MDA in charge of productivity, and they are doing very good job. We can call, they are all under Ministry of Labor. So we need to promote more knowledge about the importance of labor market issues. We always talk of ease of doing business, but nobody talks of ease of working, ease of living. If the man is not well paid, how will he get to work? But after getting the work, how does he sustain his job if he's not productive? But as I said yesterday, gives a platform to discuss labor issues, but it should be everyday affair.
Right.
You have a lot of program on capital market, finance market. I think you should create more for labor market.
Well,
the number of Nigeria has the largest.
Sir, you still haven't responded to the issue, the threats that AI poses.
Which one?
The AI.
Okay, AI. Okay, excellent. Yes. Very good point. Now, I got the point on the AI, and very good point you raised. But AI is even a taller that. Wait, there is a threat to existing jobs if we don't match it all with productivity. I'm serious. I mean, for the AI is high-tech, thing. I mean, artificial intelligence. But even the real human intelligence, one of the things that destroy textile industry, I mean, we can list them, smuggling, electricity, inappropriate policy, but it also cries for productivity. Let me tell you, Nigeria has the highest number of public holidays. When you compare to developing countries like ours. China works Saturday, Sunday. Hey, in fact, China works more than 8 hours. That's the miracle of China. Productivity. But I've told you that you go to a typical workplace in public service, it's just safari. So I'm for that. So, but back to AI, I think that's the point you have raised, that, if employers of labor, especially in private sector, who have to meet their target, they have to be productive, if they know that workers are not productive, they will apply technologies. So they bring artificial intelligence, to replace jobs. Mechanization is also going on. There is high tech. You have driverless drivers now. I mean, what do you call it? Vehicles now. So that would be the end of drivers. For drivers that we sustain this. Yeah. So but even at that, for that artificial intelligence, don't forget it's human beings that produce their technology. They must also be well paid for. There are what we call platform workers, gig workers, who are not well rewarded, Zoom workers. Even me, I told your coordinator for this program, I wanted to talk to you before Zoom. You should have paid me to talk on Zoom. It's not funny. I'm a worker.
Okay. Well, you were at work yesterday the same way we were, so there are workers and then there are laborers. The issues are not going to go away, Mr. Aremu. And I know that they are very, real. And I love what you said. There's threats.
No, excellent. I agree with you.
To existing jobs. And I am hoping that while we talk about the welfare of existing workers and all, those workers should be aware that another 5 years, their jobs may not exist anymore. And there are several others that are.
But the awareness can only come through regular education.
Which is what we are doing right now. Thank you so much for your time.
And
Mr. Issa Aremu, Director General of the Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. So, from labor, we segue to aviation in our next conversation. To stay with us.